to first thank the organizers and thank every single one of you here for what is, I think, a fascinating a conference. And I'm just going to bring a transnational perspective to this process because I'm listening to all you speak here, and it's as if I'm in Los Angeles, California. As I like to say, I'm from occupied Mexico, right? Okay. Everybody get the joke, right? Okay. Do you know what Chicano? How many people know what a Chicano is? I have one hand. Okay. So, and I, by the way, I teach at what's considered the best public university in the world, the University of California, and we actually have a department of Chicano studies. What is that? That is the study of the diasporas and the power of diasporas. Wow. All right? And in the state of California, I'll have you know that the Attorney General, the head of the Speaker of the Assembly, of the Senate, et cetera, are all sons of immigrants and daughters of immigrants, okay? Chicanos, all right? So we have a long historical perspective, which I think is appropriate that we're having this conference right here, a few blocks away from where used to be the port of the East Indian trade system that created right down the street in British imperialism and its potential around the world, where ships from just blocks away from here sailed to Africa to pick up Africans enslaved in trade, by the way, with African leaders. We know this. And brought them to create the global trading system, which then created the global migration system, which is now part of the global remittance systems, things I'll talk about later. But I did want to make the point here about Omesa's comment about perception, because we create these perceptions, right? We have created the perceptions on the world in terms of who's powerful and who's not, when in reality we're masking. And I really, really enjoyed, is it Olivia? Olivia's comments, right? Because but I think we need to fundamentally change in the universities, number one, in the power structures of governments, in the streets, the kids being stopped by the policeman, okay? About, the what really matters, right? How we really understand the future of the 21st century, which I'll talk about more. But the role of the diaspora is absolutely fundamental for the future of the planet, all right? I'll talk about how if we add up all the immigrants in the world and we add them all their economic contribution, guess what? It's the third largest economy on the planet. There's the United States, there's China, and then there's the diaspora. Way before we get to Germany and the UK and many other countries, all right? So this entire notion and this paradox, which I will talk about also, the Trump paradox and the Brexit paradox, which is now creating this notion that somehow these immigrants are the problem, when in fact, immigrants are going to be the solution for the 21st century. Yeah. And the way in which the empowerment of immigrants, both in the UK, in the United States, and in their homelands, I would say it's more than just the transmitting of knowledge. The organizers, Alam, I think is absolutely onto something. But it's a lot more than that. It's a lot more than that. It's the contribution here, and it's the contribution there, and it's the perspective of the people in this room that break the methodological nationalism, the localized ways of thinking about things, about the nature of the world. Our experience is everybody here, you're all Chicanos, by the way, okay? You may not know that, but you are a Chicano, all right? You have lived one reality, you're living another reality, you're in the middle of it where you don't know what you are, okay? Right? And then you fight back. Chicano identity, Chicano is a slang term, right? That you're neither here nor there. When I was a kid, I was born in Mexico. I had the fortune of living in many parts of the world. But when I went back as a kid to Mexico, they would say, "Oh, you're white." as you said, or I think somebody said, right? You know, you're not really Mexican anymore, okay? And then in the U.S., you're not really white, okay? So then that's why I wear my my Muslim hat, okay? So you know, I'm whatever I want to be, all right? I am the new identity, all right? And that's what we all are, all right? And that's what we need to assert. And the world needs us to do that, okay? So, you know, I think that it's curious. I'll just end here, you know, with that, we can open it up. This notion of security, right? You know, the Chicano movement, by the way, we used to be the brown berets. We were the radicals, right? We were the radical people criticizing society. We were the radical people criticizing inequalities, right? And eventually, we kicked down the doors of the university to get there and get the PhDs at the top universities in the world, and then create the new way of critically analyzing the world, right? From within the university. And you know, I think we have to be very careful that we don't fall into this new construct of looking at the diaspora in the security lens. I mean, obviously it's extremely important, you know, and there's lots of elements to it, but you know, what we have to clearly understand is that and you see it here. I mean, the diaspora is solving that problem too, right? You know, as you know, the great musical Hamilton these days, you know, immigrants, we get the job done, right? So, and in that sense, I think it's absolutely fundamental that these spaces be supported. That's why I flew all the way over here, besides the fact that I want to go to the museum, by the way, which I recommend, down the street here, the University of London Docklands Museum of, anybody been there? Aha, okay, so you're all going. All right, where it tells that story. Okay, so they're apparently one of the best museums in the world on this issue from a working class perspective, from the perspective of the base looking up, right, where the critical knowledge is made. So I think we while we're understanding this phenomenon, while we're coming from our perspective, and we're deconstructing this concept of security, I think we have to also change the entire discourse of this much broader context. Again, the third largest economic force on the planet, right, that needs to be not only embraced, not marginalized, but empowered, you know, as the way to solve many, many of the 21st century's problems. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is wonderful, and it ties up with a very important theory that was written by one of our colleagues in his book, Introduction to Geopolitics, Klaus Dott at the Royal Holloway of London. And he is calling for all of us to be geopolitical citizens, to be able to put everything in perspective, in its real wider context and perspective. And people have been exercising us about globalization, and other people were talking about glocalization, because the same way international things function at the local level, the local things function at the global level. And a single image, just a photograph from a small village anywhere in the world, could exercise the whole world through the media mechanism and so on. Nothing localized happens in isolation. A conflict in any African country does not happen in isolation. This is part of the regional geopolitical construct, international political construct, and international economic construct, and nothing happens by accidents. The floor is now all down to you and our audience from the social media platforms. If you please want to ask any question for any of our expert panelists, please welcome. The floor is now yours.
The microphone is there in the middle.
Yes. ما عندنا موبايل مايك أنا هنا.
Hello, it's working?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Dr. Kabar Mohammed from Belgium. I'm glad to attend this conference as an invitation from Professor Alam. I have paar comments, not a question, about the immigration issue and discrimination and other thing. If you look back for the history, the Europeans are colonized Africa, other countries, and they consider that as part of their land. Yeah, and by force they get out from it. And even, I tell you something, the King of Belgium, before he considered Zaire is his own property, not for the, and then later on, he said, I give it as a gift for the Belgian people. Look, yeah, his own property, yeah. Well, for the integration and assimilation and the other thing, it is a double standard for that, yeah, because it is among all the European people with different levels. Some it is hidden among the high class, and some it is clear under the second class. I give you an example for me myself. In the 1980s, I have been studying in the university there for my master's degree, and I have been giving the course of rural development for the other students. And in the exam, all the professor gave me 20 out of 20, 18 out of 18, and one professor gave me in this subject 12 out of 20. I went to him, why? I need a high mark. He said to me, high is the sky. Look, that's the first thing. I told him, look, I taught the other students this topic. He told me, well, I give the best Belgian student who have been studying in his language 13. So the thing that our people here sometimes, they are tackling the thing in a different way. And they don't understand the European mentality. Yeah, because some are frustrated. We have engineers coming there, we have doctors. They didn't find the chance. They told them, as you said, go clean and don't go to the industry. And they get frustrated. And this makes a lot of problems. So we had to fight and we had to tell them, look, you have been using our land. Before France took Algeria and said, no, we'll not go out of Algeria. It is part of France. Look, this mentality. And now when you are coming here, they say, oh, the immigrants have making problem for us. They have sharing us. I have another classical example also from Belgium. I am in a community working there with some people. They said, no, the immigrants are coming here and making problem for us. I said, what is the problem? They are driving cars. They are having good clothes. I said, well, look the way of living of the immigrants and look the way of living for you. As an immigrant, I buy a sack of potato. I buy beans, and the whole month I will stay in my home. My wife cook for me. You every day go to the shop and eat frites. You go to the cafe and you drink beer. The immigrants who are drinking go to the sheep shops and bring the beer and stay there. That is the way. So no, we will not be like them. Look, we have to understand that. Otherwise, we'll get in a deadlock. Huh? And I'm glad to be here, son. We have other discussions because the problem, our countries also have a problem with the immigrants. And sorry, later on we can discuss that. Thank you for that.
So no questions yet from social media, but just wanted to give you guys some feedback that's coming back. Yes. Abdel Khalim Bella says, very interesting discussion. And Jane Okemon says, awesome. And we've had 150 views, which is great for this early in the morning. Yes?
My name is Babakir Ismail. I live here in London. And I'm glad to be here for the second time. Thank you for Professor Allam. My question is to Nawal. And by the way, your name is similar to a Sudanese name, Nawal. So you did a study on Nigeria, and you have challenges some local concepts. And I just want to know why you have challenged these concepts. What is your framework? Do you have a better concept than the local, or do you think that these are not good concepts? And compared to what? So that's my question, because sometimes local concepts work for the local people and they might be very happy with it, and you have to improve them and make them working for the local people rather than trying to change the people to fit a specific set of thoughts or of culture. And my second question, which is very short, is to Professor Raúl. just in your comment that you said the diaspora formed the third economy in the world. This might be correct statistically, but diaspora are very divided and they are not united. They don't form one unit like United States, like China, like these countries. And I think for the diaspora to have the impact of their weight economically, they need to get together. And they need to know who they are and why, and what are their strengths. Now as diaspora, we fight against each other. It's not the different diaspora, even within the same country, within the same nation. When they come here to this country, they will start taking sides. And this is a very prevalent situation for the hosting nations. Even in work, there is a lot of politics in work, and you find the diaspora. I work in a hospital where most of the problems and issues are between diaspora consultants, not between diaspora against the local consultants. So I think the concept that it's good, yeah, the diaspora to be the third economy in the world, but it's not useful for us.
Any other comments or questions?
I have a question this time.
Yes.
Okay, and this is about peace and security and so on, because the Migration Policy Institute have actually stated that the role of diaspora in peace and security is very positive. But I have not really seen this as translated into any practical sort of case that I can quote. So my question is, how can we move the diaspora from being seen as a threat to their host countries into an adding value to the peace and security into their countries of origin?
Introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry, عادل أحمد دفع
Oh,
Yeah, that's okay.
thank you. Please, yes. And then we can give the experts the opportunity to answer the group of questions that we have.
My name is Lade Olubemi, and I'm the CEO of News Foundation, or News Organization. My question is around radicalization, diaspora, integration, immigration. They're all very much linked together.
Of course.
Unfortunately, what I've heard everybody say, fantastic talk, because they're all very much linked together. However, there's a thread that runs through, which is a major issue that's affecting everybody, and that is mental health, mental illness. We've talked about the confusion in the identity of people. By the time they come over here, the integration is causing a lot of issues mentally for immigrants and diasporans. What are we doing about it? I'm surprised today that we're talking about diaspora issues, but there's been no talk about the mental well-being of people who are very much affected with issues around integration, with issues around how they cope with changing from different economies, different society, different values. So what are we doing about it? Because it doesn't just run here, it runs with even those who are back home. So yes, it's very trans. It's very trans. So that's my question. What are we doing? Identifying what the issues are around mental health. Unfortunately, in UK at the moment, we have a very high overrepresentation of black people in the mental health sector. And I'm sure it's not just here. It's also in America as well. We find a lot of people who are walking around with undiagnosed mental health, mental illnesses, and people are not speaking. There's a higher level of stigma in our community, so people are keeping quiet. And this is showing in people's behavior. It's showing in the radicalization. A lot of the boys who are radicalized actually have mental health issues that are unidentified. So what are we doing about it? That's my question.
I would like to say that when this discussion started, I started conceiving questions in my mind, which I thought I would ask the various speakers. But as the discussion went on, my answers were already being, my questions were already being answered. Because I realized that the topics were very interrelated. And at the end of the discussion, I became quite enriched. But I have some very pertinent things which I took note of, especially from somebody like Olivia, who noted that most of the terrorist attacks which are going on today are carried out by British nationals. And that the immigrants who came here to do their job. They did not come as threats. But I would also like to say that these British nationals were initially immigrants. So one of the questions which came now is that why have they become a threat? In the course of that, the third I've forgotten the who talked about the evolution, answered my question. My question. So I realized that when we come here, most of the time, it is because we are seen as threats that we become threats. Because these British nationals, as I say, were initially immigrants. Mm-hmm. But I think that what I want to say here is that we don't need to be reactionary. Because these things which happen to us here, the discriminations which happen to us here, that we are seen upon here to be like threats, even happen in our own homes. I think what I would like to prescribe here is that we should become more tolerant, integrate ourselves fully into the society, adopt the cultures of the people, blend the cultures of the people with ours. And then somebody said, ensure that we live like people who come to Rome and becoming like Romans, not become really, reactionary like I said. And finally, I would like to the intervention of the rapporteur, who actually said what immigrants have become today. In fact, the world actually needs immigrants, and it is a trend. Rather than us becoming reactionary, we should try instead to be those who are enlightening our hosts and become more and more tolerant. And with that, I know eventually, like he said, the trend is evolutionary. And at the end of the day, we will discover that we will build a much better society than we have today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
I promise to keep it very quick.
Please, yes.
Hello, my name's Adam from Wessex Social Ventures. My father's an immigrant, but I've always considered myself English. But if somebody asked me about English values, I wouldn't really associate them at all. I've lived in other countries when I was younger, I've travelled a lot, and I really consider myself more of a global citizen. Everybody I knew growing up were from different cultures. I had a massive mix of my group of friends ever since I was growing up, and a lot of my people my age consider ourselves global citizens. And I don't know for second and third generation immigrants and people from diasporas whether there's a different mentality starting to happen, that you don't consider yourself just from that country or another country, you're in fact a global citizen, and how that affects it. Yeah. And I know that might be different for people of other generations and first generations, but I think it is, especially for people of my age, a much, much bigger driving factor. And I think it goes to your point in Togo when you're talking about people from that age. Thank you.